for entrepreneurs, I would like the recommendation, at least what I learned, is to control the things you can control and let the rest run its course, right? You cannot control things you cannot control.
Why do growing businesses go broke? Welcome to the Profit Answer Man podcast. I'm Rocky Lalvani, and I help 7- and 8-figure business owners scale profits and cash flow while working less. Every week, we dig into proven methods like the Profit First system, other cash flow strategies, and real execution. No accounting jargon, no fluff. If you're going to be the backbone of America, creating jobs and serving your mission, you deserve to be well rewarded. We're Profit First certified professionals. If you want the masterclass, check out episodes 2 through 13, including Mike Michalowicz, where I break down the entire Profit First book, chapter by chapter. If you want, grab your free copy of the Profit Blueprint book at profitcomesfirst.com and start making profit a habit today. You built this business to serve your mission and your freedom. Let's make sure it pays you back. We also offer strategic tax planning and preparation to help you keep more of that profit. Now let's dive in. What if the reason your marketing isn't working has nothing to do with how much you spend and everything to do with the systems you use? I'm going to ask lots of million-dollar questions on marketing, the questions you want to know the answers to in your business. Our guest today has spent 13 years engineering growth for some of the world's most recognized brands: Corona, Modelo, Capital One, and a lot of fintech-backed unicorns. She's walked the floors of Fortune 500 boardrooms, and now she's on a mission to hand those same million-dollar playbooks directly to small business owners like you. She's been to 42 countries, speaks 5 languages, and has a rare gift. She can decode why people actually buy across cultures, platforms, and every stage of the customer journey. And she's created from that her company, Signal Growth, where she and her team engineer predictable, scalable revenue, not through guesswork, through precision. Today, she's going to break down why your paid ads might be costing you more than they're earning you, how to know if your marketing agency is actually delivering or just telling you a great story, and what the first 90 days of real growth system actually looks like. We'll also talk about how AI is changing the game and what smart founders are doing right now to stay ahead. So if you feel like you're throwing money at marketing and just hoping something sticks, stay with us, because Kathie shares today can completely change how you think about growth. Let's meet her and get started. Welcome to the Profit Answer Man, Kathie Feng. It's great to have you join us today.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
And I'm excited to learn from you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your business?
Yeah, definitely. So I am an executive leadership coming from Fortune 500 company background. I've been in marketing for over 15 years now. And then now I have a business that's helping entrepreneurs and SMBs supercharge their growth called Signal Growth, which is a fractional CMO collective.
And I know for most business owners, that's one of the issues. How do we grow? How do we get more revenue? And it seems like the marketplace is also kind of changing in that the tools that worked in the past either don't work, or the cost of what they were doing for marketing to pay for paid advertising has gone up, or the results aren't the same. So I'd love to hear what you see and how you help people.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I can answer this question like in different ways, kind of dissecting this question into different aspects. So before entrepreneur, you decide to ship your products, I usually recommend entrepreneurs to understand the product market and the pricing fit. So for entrepreneurs, you probably are familiar with the product market fit. It's kind of started from A, C, and Z, understanding who are your target audiences, as well as are your product actually serving that segment of the audiences. So essentially you need to find someone that's passionate, not just like your product, but they're passionate enough for your product to be able to, solving some sort of pain point for them to actually pay the price, right? So that's the first thing, understanding who are your target audience.
How do you find people who are passionate about your product, though?
Yes, that's a great question. So for all the entrepreneurs I'm working with, myself being one, we have a vision, we have a passion about some sort of pain point we want to resolve, usually our own pain point, right? You've experienced this firsthand. So this is something that's really painful and needs to be addressed. So that's usually how the journey starts. But then how do you really look for people that has shared similar pain point, share similar visions, is usually through product-led marketing. So building a customer feedback loop. So for example, one of my clients is in the fashion AI space that's focusing on virtual try-on and AI agent technologies. So the pain point starts with people who don't know how to dress for different occasions, or people who are too busy to even think about what should I be dressing like for specific locations. So that comes into play in terms of hiring an AI agent that's understanding your hair color, your eye color, your body measure, and your suitable styles, and be able to scrape the network on the suitable style based on your body, measurement to provide the styles in front of you, right? So that was a pain point number one. And how do we really find the customers that are really sharing the same pain points? It is through customer surveys. We have hypotheses, and then we want to verify those hypotheses. So starting from your hypothesis, we think people that could be our potential customer that have a similar pain point could be someone who are too busy, like people are making really good amount of money, but they just never have time to even think about their styles. And then people who are struggling with fashions. So we identify different customer segmentation. So essentially develop a segmentation strategy, focus on different customer segments, and the outreach to those customers to solicit their feedback and building that feedback loop. So that will be the first step to understand who are actually your audiences that will pay premiums.
Do you find most business owners are clear on who their audience is, or do they not necessarily understand the pain point that they're, in other words, they might say, oh, the pain point's this, but their buyer says, no, my pain point is actually this.
100%. That's a great question. A lot of SMBs that I'm working with, which is a little bit different mindset compared to entrepreneurs, they have a product they want to ship and they want to see if that can make money. So a lot of time is the blind spot number one is I just want to get my Meta campaign launch and Google campaign launch, and then I'm set, right? Like money will come in, people will buy my product. So it's usually not the case. So, and I can answer this in so many different ways of why this is not the case. Is one, you haven't found your target customers. You don't know who are your target customers are, and how do we really structure some sort of test and learn strategy to understand who are your target audiences. And the second is, are those target audiences, are you really solving the pains for those target audiences? So is there a fit or is there a misalignment? You think your audience is A, but they're actually B. Or they're A, but you're solving 30% of their pain, but not 100%. So they still don't want to pay premium on that. So there's just a lot of different misalignment that could happen in this stage that requires a lot of test and learns, consumer feedback loop to understand your product market fit. And then from there, what are the pricing, in other words, willingness to pay of the consumers should be put into place for you to continuously generate revenue of the business.
And that makes sense. I think the struggle for most of the smaller entrepreneurs is how do they find those people? Like, how do I connect with that person who has that problem? How do I even know where they're hanging out? That becomes an issue.
That's $1 million question, right? So depends on the category. So let me give you an example. Some of the clients for me, they're coaches, like creators that they have coaching products. They establish their Kajabi courses, and then they have some sort of programs they want to sell to consumers. So for example, in info product vertical, it's the most easiest and powerful way of getting your brand and your program out to the consumer is paid ads. So you would probably roughly spend like 50% of your revenue on ads just to continue to generate enough leads to feed your funnel. So Meta and Google will be your best friend to really understand how to launch a successful campaign. And then if you double click on, once you determine on the channel, you have to do a test and learn strategy. And then even within Meta and Google, such as consumer facing platforms, each platform has best practices that can generate different outcomes, right? So it's kind of like the puzzle that you have to navigate through. And a lot of pains or blind spots from entrepreneurs that's in the info product stages, which I've worked with, a lot of them think, I just need to get my Meta and Google ads on and I'm all set, right? So this is essentially not the case. And that's where you realize that Meta, you feel the platform is sucking money and then not giving you return. And then you just have less and less confidence in those platforms and stop spending. But that also kills your lead funnel. So it's some sort of struggle and a pretty prominent pain point I've seen across the board. So my advice is always working with a marketing professional to really diagnose your funnel bottlenecks and building best practices and test and learn strategies within each of the platform to make sure the platforms are working for you, not against you. And they're very, very powerful. So once you have that, get that hand of it, it's going to be a smooth sailing.
So what I find is a lot of times when they work with marketing agencies, they're always told they're sold a good story, but they don't always get the results they want. And then it's always like, well, we haven't tried long enough or you haven't spent enough. And so there's this fight back and forth. And the business owner doesn't know how to judge it, right? They're not the expert in marketing. And so they're like, I was told to do this. I paid all this money, but I don't get the result I want. How can they be sure that they're working either with the right person or that the right things are getting done to ensure they have success?
Yeah, that's another $1 million question, right? Just it's kind of like if you're in the dating market, you swipe on the Tinder profile or, Coffee Meets Bagel profile. The profile looks perfect. Everything just feels like I want to go. But then when you go meet with them, like within 3 days, you're like, oh, this is actually not a personality fit or something like, red flags that you discover. So I would say definitely have a chat with the agency and then being able to, chat for multiple times. Definitely for me, because I experienced the same thing with the agencies I work with, right? Like over decades, I manage probably over 20 plus different agencies. They tell a beautiful story because that's all marketers do, but how do they really continue driving results? That's the question. So I would advise for entrepreneurs for the first few days, then when you're talking to your agencies, definitely one, ask for campaign results, right? Like there is some sort of benchmark on specific campaigns that you can refer to. And I'll heading those benchmarks. And then second is to understand the methodology when it's setting up your campaigns or even identify your audiences, right? So before campaign launch, there's a lot of strategies behind what's their rationale of setting those strategies and how can they prove the result with you, to you within certain time frame. So hold the agency accountable, setting very clear KPIs in terms for the agency to hit. And then if they couldn't hit them, maybe that's not a good fit for you. So those could be a couple indicators to discover throughout the course of working together. But essentially, in the first couple dates, I would definitely ask for results. For example, the clients I'm working with from Meta perspective, we typically can see we hit the ROAS from 8 to 10x, right? Some agency will be telling you 4 to 6 is really high, but essentially I've seen better. Right? Like email open rates, like they were saying 40, 50% is really good, but I've seen better. So it's just kind of some sort of comparison between their price tag and also how much result they can deliver. And it's kind of like the balance act for the owners or SMBs to determine if you want to start small to test it out and then have you get a little bit of campaign learning before you moving on to, bigger scope. What's the best way of, kind of like measuring this success. But long story short, I think setting up KPIs and understand what benchmark could be compared against will be the first thing I would do.
How is AI changing the game? Because more and more I'm hearing people think they can do their own marketing or they're creating their own content with AI. And what we're seeing right now is a proliferation of content, which what I'm seeing on the other side of that content is A, it's too much. B,
Yeah.
how do I know what's real? How do I know that this is true or it's just somebody creating or saying they can do something because AI has made it so easy?
Yeah. Yeah. That's another $1 million question. I love it. I have to say, in general, sometimes everybody has some sort of superpower, right? Like if you get it, you get it. If you don't get it, it takes a while for you to get it. So from a marketing perspective, for me, how do I judge whether this content is written by AI or not? It's just kind of like intuition, right? Like you kind of see some sort of pattern that AI is generating. Like maybe 6 months ago, anything says no fluff, it's probably ChatGPT. Or like, with certain extraordinary emojis or way too much emoji use, that's definitely AI. But then right now people are getting better in that. So there are some words are being fine-tuned, an elevated pitch that's coming out. But I would say there's still some sort of pattern that can easily be spotted if it's the AI created content. So it's just kind of like some sort of sense, just like I would never be an engineer because I am not very good at coding, even though vibe coding has helping me a lot. But it's the same thing for marketing. Like I've been in marketing for over decades now. I can spot like AI content or like, how the way that they've been generating content or the strategy behind that. So there's some sort of kind of like professionalism plus experiences in determining how this is based on AI. But to answer your other question in terms of how AI is shaping our workflow, I would say this is absolutely a must. AI is a buzzword, but if you dissect the AI into different aspects, it's going to be kind of like filling into all of the different workflows, right? So, for example, physical AI, like autonomy drivers, your vacuum or potential robots going to do like your house chore, or even like, delivery, just by robot. There's so many different things from physical AI perspective, but also the actual AI, like generative AIs that's inserted into your workflow. Now every app that has an AI agent that's helping you like troubleshooting, understanding how to use the platform. And then a lot of customer service is also being replaced by AI. So it's definitely essential moving forward, but it's just kind of like, managing them like managing your employee or your kind of like software. If you don't do it correctly, it's going to be a nightmare for sure. But then if you can harness the power of AI, it's going to be, astronomical like for your business or growth and then supercharge your future.
So again, I'm going to just because you're in this business is coming back to the question of judging the agency I want to work with. And the reason I say that is a couplefold. One, the agencies might be using offshore talent. And that's not to say people in other countries aren't good or bad. It's just sometimes they don't have the same understanding of our market. There's the nuances that you miss. Some of them may be using a ton of AI to do the work themselves. How do you determine who's actually going to do your work? And should you ask that up front to say, who's actually going to prepare my marketing pieces? Because I think a lot of times people don't ask and then they wonder why things aren't going the way they should have gone.
Yeah. So couple things top of my head that I can potentially help address this issue. I myself also work with offshore talents, right? So being able to find a good talent, it's really hard. Like the reason I'm working with the AI startup I was mentioning about in the fashion retail side was because the founder has a product background and she has no marketing background. So she thought she can hire someone to do the marketing stuff, but she continues like experienced the wrong hire. She thought she can do the job. And then when she hired this person, she just couldn't do. So that's probably a lot of founders, what they're experiencing when you are not in the weeds of things. It's really hard for you to judge whether this person you're going to be hiring can do the job or not. So for me, one is my recommendations, there are different paths. One is to actually working with a senior professional, like a seasoned marketer that you trust, or maybe referral, or maybe like do a test pilot just in terms of how this person drive your overall growth within 90 days, right? I constantly generate results for my client within the first 90 to 120 days because we have this methodological like framework and step-by-step milestones. So you know exactly what we do for you. That would be the path one. And the path two is always have a small pilot to work with this contractor, right? Like talk to the contractor in terms of what are they good about, and then what are their portfolio looks like. If it's a visual art, it's very prominent, right? You can just see if this is something you would like. But from a marketing strategy perspective, do a pilot with the, with the vendor to see if within 90 days, this person can drive your results.
You keep saying a lot about strategy. And I think this is where a lot of small business owners get caught up. They're more focused on tactics and not necessarily strategy. And so there's a differential there. And I think if they understand the bigger strategy, and also the bigger strategy is also multiple touch points, meaning you have to use different platforms. And different people are going to react differently on different platforms. So it's not sending the same thing everywhere. Can you talk about that and how you figure out that bigger picture? And how much does the business owner themselves have to be involved in that? Because a lot of times they seem to abdicate that or not truly understand that part of the strategy.
Yes, that's a great question. So to answer this question, like going back to what I mentioned about the winning triangle. So this is like the winning triangle from product, market, and also pricing perspective. First, this is your strategy. You need to understand who to target and then what to target them. So you have an offer, you have mission, you have passion. Who are your target audiences that's receptive of your product and are passionate about to buy it? And then once you determine that, what is your pricing strategy that you can rolling out to those people to extract revenue? And then through this, how do we build this winning triangles? Through rigorous test and learns. So being able to build out the structure of test and learns. So for example, in info product space, we want to know what the product and market fit and also pricing strategy. We're rolling out tier pricing against specific audiences on Meta and Google because those are the platforms that can generate the most revenue. So we have that variable set. And the other variables are the pricing and the audiences, right? So we do different bidding, we do different pricing tiers, and then continuously rolling out test and learn to understand what actually works, what's not, and how do we scale from there. So that's just one example of how to potentially do pricing tier strategy or like test and learns within the info product space. And of course, this can be amplified to DTC. E-commerce is a different practice. Consumer brands are different. Alcohol and beverage different. AI SaaS will also be different. So within each of the industry, they essentially have some sort of playbooks behind that we can apply for entrepreneurs and SMBs.
What we're finding now is, depending on the particular market, trying to buy Google AdWords and so forth has gotten super expensive. And it's especially expensive if you can't respond quickly. Meaning if the phone rings and you're not getting back to your clients fast enough, they're calling the next person. And so you're not getting the return that you would hope for with that.
Yes.
How do people with smaller budgets deal with this, or should they go to different platforms, or what should they do?
Yeah, that's a great question. There are a lot of powerful platforms that's integrating phone calls, email, SMS, follow-up. It's a workflow within the automated system. So for example, a lot of entrepreneurs that I work with or SMBs, they use Go High Level, Kajabi, or like the different CRM systems that's powerful to be able to tackle your phone leads, SMS and email leads for follow-ups. And then depends on your business scale. Some people hire closers, right? I'm not a strong believer of setters because AI can set in your appointments for everything. But closer, an experienced salesperson that can advocate for your business in a non-pushy and an authentic way could be something that can be considered in terms of how do you really, convey this person and persuade this person to buy your product if it's a high ticket. So in general, if anything less than $2,000, I personally think you can use AI automated system just to close them. But with the high ticket offers like 7K plus, a little bit personal touch will be really important in this case because people have to build trust, familiarity before they even pull out their credit card for high ticket products like this. So there's a lot of different variables taking into considerations. But how I work with entrepreneurs is really understand your product, your market, and your audiences. And then from there, there's a lot of different nuances that can put into play in terms of how the playbooks should be.
Are you seeing with the higher ticket items that the time from finding out about or the time from learning about a product to the time of making the purchasing decision is lengthening and getting longer and longer? We're starting to hear that with some people, that some of the bigger ticket items, people are not moving as fast as they used to. I don't know if it's overwhelm. I don't know if it's just the state of the economy or what's kind of going on.
That's a great question. Not $1 million question. It's so many nuances taken into consideration, but essentially, I would say consumers' decision journey is no longer in a linear space, right? Like people 15 years ago, I've heard so many things that there is a consideration, awareness going to consideration, going to conversion. However, right now it's no longer linear because people can be multitasking in all the different channels. I can be looking at the TV while doing like something on my laptop and also scrolling social media at the same time. And that there's so many informations that's getting into this person at the different stage of the game. So it's no longer a linear decision process based on the new information that I'm getting. It's scattered. So you will see a lot of conversions or like, from time perspective, from, like a lens perspective are no longer linear and no longer predictable. So what's the most like predictable outcome is actually how you outreach to the consumers, right? So for example, on the Meta platform, now we optimize a campaign based on the algorithm, based on what AI thinks it's going to be most impactful, based on your creative, based on your message. So if you have a successful creative that's reaching out to the audiences and you reach them enough times, while you follow up with them in email and message enough times until they fully bake through their decision funnel, that's when they will convert. But then on top of that, there's also finance or, emergency, family situations. People are, life is full of surprises. So for entrepreneurs, I would like the recommendation, at least what I learned, is to control the things you can control and let the rest run its course, right? You cannot control things you cannot control, but whatever I can control, for example, my message has to be clear. My creative has to be appealing. I have to abide by Meta's, creative best practices, have the most important message sliding in with the first 2 seconds, right? So there's a lot of blind spots. It's like people think I just need to get things on, click button, and then let the platform run the rest. But from creative perspective, like the average view time on Meta is around 1 to 2 seconds, right? So how do you get your most important message within the first 2 seconds? That's a kind of like an art that we have to master. And then once you have a strong hook to catch consumers' attention, how do you continuously engage them throughout your 15-second ad and have them click on the button? So those are different things that I can control. And I would recommend my clients or people I'm working with control what you can control, master like everything that you know. And then the rest of it is just have the algorithm run its course, and they will find the people that can convert for you. So in this case, you are operating in the most efficient and effective way.
How long do the algorithms take to find your perfect audience? Because that's where the conversation, you got to spend more, wait more. Like, how long what does that look like? Do you have to spend a lot to do that? Can you do it with little?
That's another great question. Yeah. So in my corporate world, my agency always tell me it takes 2 weeks for the campaign to ramp up, right? Like because the algorithm needs to learn. But in my startup life, when I'm actually actively managing the platform myself, it takes me 3 days. I can know if this creative is working or not in 3 days based on how the algorithm is sharing the impressions. And then within the first day, you can probably reach thousands of people already. And then the statistical significance, the number for that is 30, right? So if you hit 30 audiences, this one will work or not. So in a very, very realistic way, I think within a couple of days, you should be able to know your campaign's trending. Another blind spot is how is your creative is working for you. For example, if this campaign has a high sense of urgency, I'm hosting a webinar in 2 weeks. So in this 2 weeks, I need to generate as many audiences as possible. And that creative will be different compared to I have an evergreen offer. This is like the product I'm selling 24/7 and 365. That would be a different creative that you're homing against, and the algorithm would find a different audience for you, which is going to take probably a week to ramp up. So there is a different creative formats that will work differently, and you will be able to see a result differently based on different creative format.
And I tell people, everything is copying everything, including AI. So go see what's working out in the world and what competitors are doing, and then figure out how to make it yours. Clearly, you don't do exactly what they're doing, but start to see what is working out there, what types of things are gaining traction, and then adapt it. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. 3 things I want you to walk away with today. First, you've got to know your audience before you spend a single dollar on ads. Stop throwing money out hoping it'll work. The market will tell you the truth, but you have to listen. So hold your agency accountable if you're doing that, or if you've got your own people or yourself, hold yourself accountable to check what's working. At the end of the day, beautiful stories don't pay bills. Clear KPIs do. Growth isn't luck. It's engineered. The right systems change everything. This is how I work with my clients and their marketing agencies. These are the things that we want to measure and know. We want financial clarity. We want to know that what dollar we spend and where is the return coming from. That's part of it. Kathie does this for the marketing side. I do this across the entire business. At the end of the day, we believe the purpose of your business is to make money. So if it's not going in your pocket, it's not making money. Let's fix that. Tired of scaling and growing beyond your cash? Ready to end the cash flow roller coaster and build real wealth inside and outside your business? We should talk. I serve 7- and 8-figure mission-driven business owners increase their profit and cash flow while working less. We help you build the businesses that run without you, so you work less and make more. Book your discovery call today. There's a link in the show notes. You'll work directly with me as your Chief Profitability Officer. If you're a 6-figure business owner, check out the Profit Blueprint program at ProfitComesFirst.com. It's your guided path to mastering your numbers with my assistance at an affordable investment for your revenue. Check out my other podcast, Richer Soul. It covers leading yourself and building the ultimate life and business. There's also a link in the show notes. Thanks for listening to the podcast, where revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is king. Have a profitable week.